In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Ritz Furniture specializes in quality furniture for affordable prices. Our extensive inventory highlights top brands and provides everything you could ever want. You can count on us for kitchen, dining, bedroom, and living room furniture, no matter what the style is you have in mind. Stop in with your family and look at our amazing selection to find the perfect fit for your home. Contact us today to see how we can make a difference in your home.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Inside the Smoky Mountain Conference presented by Team Flying Sports. Jake West, joined as always by Brandon Stevens. Brandon, we saw some good football last week, some overtime games, some 1-point losses, some 90-point totals in the Cherokee Mount Zion game. But tell me, just real quickly before we get into the recaps and talking about next week, who won the weekend last weekend?
Big coin toss for me because I look at that Andrews game. Needed to have it. It was a good win. You got some points. I mean, that's what you were expecting. Cherokee does battle, and they come out with a win. Over Mount Zion Christian Academy. I think Murphy needing to build up some points and get some confidence back in with a team. 65-20. I mean, it's a relative coin toss. I think that probably Andrews, in my opinion, probably comes up as one of the big winners for that. Just needing to rip through that and get into the regular season. Of course, it's that time of the year, Jake. You've got to have good wins. You got to have good momentum moving in because every coach and every player that you talk to through this conference says, somebody might be 1 end, 0 end, but they'll be ready for conference. And that's the truth. You can feel it back building like this hurricane that's getting ready to come in. It's a building force. It's not doing anything right now, but in just a little while, you might see some big time work. But push me to the edge. I like Andrews. I like the fact that they came away. They had some really good yardage. And they did some things with it. I think regardless of who you play, regardless of how strong or how weak that team is, anytime you can walk away with just some good things in your pocket, which I think Andrews did. Murphy, somebody said, well, why didn't you choose Murphy or somebody like you watch them all the time? I think they're right there on the edge. I think that they needed to have some breakout points for certain people. And we can talk about that, but I think that and Cherokee, that one should have been. I hate to say it this way, but it should have just been one thing where you just took your finger and pushed that old tractor over into the ditch and got it out of the way. But Mount Zion Christian Academy, they did some work on Cherokee, so coming out of it pretty clean. Long answer to your question, I like Andrews for the winner this week.
I think. Unconventionally here, the big winner of the week was Swain County. They got some time to rest up with their bye week. They are heading into a very winnable game against Madison on Thursday, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But, the injuries just have plagued Coach Holt and the Maroon Devils all year, and this is a good week for them to, look around the conference. I'm sure they've watched as many games as they could get their eyeballs on. and kind of get a feel for the SMC, because that's what you do when you're on a bye week. And like I said, they were able to rest up and recuperate some of those injuries and maybe get some of those kids back for a very winnable football game against Madison that could jumpstart them into conference play. But on the flip side of things, Brandon, somebody won the week. That means somebody lost the week. Who lost the week last week?
I've got to reach it back in, pull that old quarterback out and flip it and see who between Robbinsville and Hayesville. We knew that Trine was going to be a tough game. That's not a cakewalk game that you played, and I don't think really. I don't want to say this just because there's probably somebody saying, well, not giving them the credit that they have, but they played some really tough teams. And they've played some close games. This one, unfortunately, is just it's one of the better homeschool, chartered, independent, organized teams that you'll play. And they were 5-0 coming into this game, and it was really evident. But on the other hand, going in for the Hayesville Yellow Jackets, you've got to have that game. You've got to have Georgia Force. That's one of those two that you look at on the schedule and say that's an automatic W, and we'll just go through. But again, this is a much stronger Georgia Force football team. They've really got things organized. I think they're doing a lot better, and they're doing what they hoped that they would do in the long-term vision of having a good, strong football team. And I think that's becoming more evident. But Hayesville, on the other hand, when you look back over the 4 losses that they've had, only 2 touchdowns scored so far this season. And I was hoping to see a little more exercise coming out of Tate Roberts. I was looking to see a few other things come up. So probably I'm going to say Hayesville.
Yeah, I think Hayesville was hit with some injuries this past week as well. But Robbinsville, just an emotionally draining football game that they played in, going into overtime. They battled back. They got down early. They battled back. Roman Jones had a heck of a game. He's just played when he's been on the field. He is definitely a difference maker for them. But I don't know. It's hard to keep coming back to this. Who lost the week. You hate to see injuries, but I mean, like you said, Hayesville only putting up 6 points, only scoring. What'd you say? They've only scored 2 touchdowns all year. It's very evident that they need to find somebody to give them a spark offensively, because defensively, they've played well. They played well against Andrews defensively. They played well against Georgia Force defensively. They just have to find ways to score, and whether that's going to come with mixing in some other people at quarterback, running some different formations, putting Trey Graves back there, letting him run Wildcat or something. You've got to change something up and find some semblance of an offense. But just a weird week, a weird start to the season actually for Hayesville, a Hayesville team that I thought was going to compete in the upper echelon of the conference with the big 3, that have been previously cemented throughout the tradition of the Smoky Mountain Conference. I thought Hayesville would be able to knock one of those teams off, but it doesn't look like it so far. I do think, switching gears a little bit, a team that could compete and should be up there, at least from what we've seen so far, is Andrews, who we'll skim over Murphy here in a second, but because they don't play a game this week. But Andrews supposed to have homecoming coming up this week. That's now moved to their game against Swain in 2 weeks due to the weather that's showing this week. You talked about their huge 49-0 win over Calhoun Falls Charter. This week they host Southside Christian. Should be much more of the same this week than we saw last week. Another huge game on the ground for these guys with Tatham and Aguilar and that offensive line just moving people out of the way. Should be more of the same, and I wouldn't be surprised if this week we see Aguilar as the conference's leading rusher when they come away with a win versus Southside Christian.
Well, I think so, and I think that's where some things have to live with Andrews. They're doing pretty well as far as looking back through just a moment of how their performance is. I mean, Tatham, hitting just right at 50%, a little bit better than 50% in his passing. I want to see really still some more breakout nights for Eli Aguilar, and of course Tatham's calling his own number. So between those two, you'd like to, and Rattler. That's another sleeping giant. I think that I'd like to see him break out and have some good football games. The other thing I think that probably Roberts, McClellan, a few others that you'd like to see with that passing game, because I think again Everett Tatham is very talented. He can sling the ball, with the number of, but again, the number of yards. It's not exactly the passing team, but this is a team that really, in my opinion, has, if given some time and it develops, it can be very effective.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the surprise team of the year, at least for me. I mean, this is a team that last year didn't win a single conference game, and here they are. They could have been 4-0 if not for a failed 2-point conversion against Mitchell County on the road. So I don't know, with what they lost last season compared to what they returned this year. I didn't expect them to be in the spot where they are, but I guess Tatham going out last year probably had a lot to do with how they struggled down the stretch. I mean, they went Swain County, Cherokee, Robbinsville, Murphy, Hayesville, Thomasville, all losses, 7 straight losses, 6 straight losses to end the season last year. Then they bounced back, and they've already got some pretty good wins this year. But one more tune-up game against Southside Christian before heading into conference play, and that's where, like you said, we'll find out who the real contenders are. But speaking of the Christian schools, as Andrews will host Southside Christian this week, Hayesville sandwiched back-to-back weeks of playing Christian schools as they come off a 7-6 loss to Georgia Force Christian. Now head out on the road to face Concord Christian. This is, the football team of Concord Christian, I don't have much to say about them because I don't know anything about them.
No. Again, some of these schools like Southside Christian, a few others, I can't tell you. And most of them is what you see. It's one of the easier offenses. You always just say, well, they're probably going to run spread. They're probably going to have somebody really fast that can catch the ball. But the only thing you can really look back and say about this team is that they've been in areas where they've played similar teams, and it's not been good. This one should be a nice breakout night. It should be a nice, to me. This is, you can put the W up there for Hayesville, but the question is, I think in getting to it, how much do you exercise the team, and what kind of results do you see? Because you've got to have it coming in next week. You play Murphy.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for Hayesville to kind of do some of those plug and play things. Mm-hmm. Find out who's going to be your go-to guys coming up. The last thing I can find, last full season Concord Christian played was 2017. They played teams like Lookout Valley, Cosby, some of the Kings Academy, and they lost to all those teams. They were 0-11 in their last full season. Last year, it looked like they played one football game against Bearden, and they lost that 17-13. So, should be a get-right game for Hayesville as they head out on the road to Concord Christian. But, they need this badly. They need to put up a lot of points and build some confidence in their guys and show that they can compete and that they have that big playability, which is what we saw from them last year, and that's what they're lacking this year. This big play, the ability to break off big plays is how Hayesville was able to keep it close against Robbinsville, Swain, Murphy last year. They kept it all within one score against those teams, and that was because they were able to, give it to Trey Graves or give it to Taylor McClure, and they were able to break one off at any point in time. And we just have not seen that ability so far in this one. But I agree with you; it should be a huge Hayesville win, and they should get back on track.
Yeah, I want to see Trey Graves build up those numbers. I mean, I'm not just talking about numbers or trying to have stats and that sort of thing, but for Hayesville to be competitive, I want to see some good things come from that guy. And also, Graves is another receiver, but you've got to look to your other go-to guy, Michael Monty, who those are two excellent tools that the Hayesville Yellow Jackets have. In addition to Roberts controlling things, but line protect those guys and get them moving. But this hopefully will be the day where you see the stars shine for the Hayesville Yellow Jackets, and you got to have it, especially now that momentum is building up against one of your formidable opponents, the Murphy Bulldogs. And they're coming in, and you start conference, and then things start to fall like dominoes if you don't.
Yeah, agreed. Another team kind of in the same boat as Hayesville that really needs a victory and is in a spot to finally get one this week would be Swain County as they host Madison, and that game's been moved to Thursday, correct?
That's what we're hearing from Coach Holt. But I'll say something real quick. It's kind of odd. It's almost like we're like in this little bitty mini version of pandemic or something like that with the hurricanes coming through. Realize that, heck, maybe none of these games, we're just talking about anything. But no, being serious, Maroon Devils going to move it. But last game they played, not exactly the best game. The Tuscola Mountaineers came in, won that game 42-8, and it was only in the last moments that Swain County, had a score. But the problem was, and that was a nice score that John Stevenson passed to Mason Cochran. It brought fans to their feet. They needed something because it was really a struggle. 14 points scored by Tuscola in the first quarter, 21 points scored by halftime. In the second quarter, another 7, and then Tuscola actually at one point in that game pulled out all their starters, and then at the last dying few moments, and I guess they were trying to keep the shutout going. They put their number ones back into the game, but I thought just kind of fighting back that Swain County at that time you could see that they were laboring. They were a little tired going into the final moments of that game. Not exactly the biggest numbers, 81 yards of rushing offense and 37 yards of passing offense. It was a weak night for Swain. This is not Swain County football. We talked about that last week, but Tuscola had a chip on its shoulder coming into that game, wanting to exact the loss that they had last year in Waynesville. We talked about that. But this week, Madison County, a team that really hasn't seen a lot of wins in its history. There was a peak point where, they were a team that they rebuilt, they came back, and now we get word that earlier this week, they're looking for a new coach. So there's some instability there. We'll talk about other things like that, but Madison County not exactly lighting things on fire. This may be a chance this week for Swain County to get that first win.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've just like Hazel, they've got to get back on track, and this is a perfect opportunity to do so. Coming off of a bye, hopefully you've implemented a new game plan heading into this football game, and you come away with a victory and get jump started heading into conference play. That's what both Hayesville and Swain County need. But game of the week this week is the only conference game in the Smoky Mountain Conference as Cherokee travels to Robbinsville Robbinsville coming off an overtime loss to a very good Tryon football team. Cherokee coming off a high-scoring win versus Mount Zion. And I put out, a little article of the top games to watch in the area, 3 in Georgia, 3 in North Carolina. This is definitely one of them because I think that this can be a very close football game with the way that Cherokee can score points. If Cherokee can take care of the football, and I'm sure Coach Hawkins will tell you the same thing. If Cherokee can take care of the football, they compete here. If not, Robbinsville runs away with this one at home. But barring a hurricane, this is where I will be on Friday night.
And it'd be a good place to be because I think that you said it exactly right. I think the theme is take care of the football on both sides, whether it's just been little miscues or a fumble here or there. But a costly interception last week for Robbinsville or some things like that. You've got that's been one of the things that you take care of. But I think, Jake, this is a game where there's a bit of drama. You've got Cherokee players on both sides, some that come from Snowbird, and they're really talented. When you look at people like Roman Jones, or especially up there in Robbinsville, but Luke Smith, I think with Cherokee's probably some of the best. But we can name all the talented skill players, or we call them quote skill players. But I have a feeling this one is probably going to be a game that's won in the trenches.
Yeah.
One of the weaker points to Robbinsville has been the interior line and the works, and similar, giving some protection to quarterbacks and running backs in Cherokee, being able to execute and do well. I think this one's going to be, just sound like a broken record, but it's a good old smash mouth football. And I think whoever can tough this one out, because you've got talented people on both sides that can make the pass and RPO and run pass option. This one is going to be how can you protect our guys? That's going to come from the line.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned the Adams interception. That was tipped at the line, and the Tryon Bulldog lineman came down with it, ended that game in overtime. Part of the reason I think this is going to be a close game is because maybe we see a little Robbinsville hangover from how emotional that loss was, 3.5 hours away, however far away it was, to Tryon. Go down there, you compete, you play really, really good football, and then at the end, it's not enough to come away with a victory. That can carry over if you allow that to hang around in the back of your mind, because it's very emotional, very draining. It's physically draining too when you play extra football and you go into overtime. So I'm expecting a really good football game from these two teams. I do think that if Cherokee is able to compete, it will be a high-scoring football game because Cherokee just let Mount Zion put up, 40 points on them?
Right.
So, but on the flip side of that, Tryon scored 35, and they throw the football a lot, and so does Cherokee. So I think this is a very good matchup for our first conference game of the season.
Yeah, I think this one is really, like as you mentioned, this is like the game to watch. There's going to be some drama to it. There's going to be, but I think there's going to be really good play that comes out of it.
Sure.
Because I think at this point, Cherokee's been wanting to build up some things, show what it really has, and we know Robbinsville is a power. I mean, they have really good players at all the skill positions. Quarterback, running back, wide receivers. Again, I keep drifting back to this is going to be a game of who can tough it out defense and offensively, and keep their team protected, or how much you allow the other team to score on you. If you can shut some things out, get some hurry on the quarterbacks and mess some things up for your opponents. But you're right. This one is really going to display who has good skill, who has the strength to stop the other guy.
This is an opportunity for Robbinsville to show everyone that, their 1-4 start is very fluky. This is an opportunity for them to show that the Black Knights are still the Black Knights. They're still the team to beat in the Smoky Mountain Conference. They're still one of the big dogs in Western North Carolina. If they come out and control this game from horn to horn, then I think that puts a lot of the rest of the Smoky Mountain Conference on notice.
I think you're exactly right, and I think that with some folks in the middle, Collins, Hedden, Adams, a few others that lead the way in tackling. Again, I'm telling you to watch a few folks there, but I think the big thing that I like what you said is that you're one and whether you're 1-4, 1-5, 1-10, whatever. I think looking at how Robbinsville has played some really tough teams, and it's we haven't seen like big blowaway football games. The one like with Mountain Heritage that could have easily been a disaster. But I think all the other teams, Franklin, that's been the only one that's really been really painful. But I think everybody in the Smoky Mountain Conference who's played the Franklin Panthers this year came away with a Panther scratch or two or 10. So in that, no, this is but it's depressing when you look and say, well, we're 1-4, but we beat some doggone good football teams that don't pave the way for good times. But that is the thing that you've got to look at Robbinsville. They played some excellent football teams, just been close but no cigar type situations. And no, this is where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. You're going to see all that clear out, and who's gooder or who's badder than the other, so to speak, using bad English.
So I think this ball game is close at halftime, and well, it's hard to give a prediction because you don't know when it's going to be played. Don't know if it's going to be raining. If it's raining, I think Robbinsville has a good opportunity to really run away with this one because Cherokee, so much of their offense is through the air. And you mix it rain and already having problems putting the ball on the ground, ball slipping, throwing interceptions, and Robbinsville's just able to pound the rock and hold on to it. Robbinsville could probably run away with this one, but I think if it does get moved, there's no rain. I could see this being close until halftime, and then I think Robbinsville just kind of overpowers Cherokee, and it ends up being 35-21, something like that. But I could see 21-21, 21-14, something like that at the break of this football game. But if Cherokee does have big playability, and that keeps them in almost every game because they're able to give it to Smith or Sailor or some of those guys, and they can just house it at any point in time. But I do think Robbinsville wins this one, probably by 2 touchdowns. But I do think that it's very close until the fourth quarter. Cherokee coughs it up, Robbinsville capitalizes, and it's pretty much iced.
So, yeah, I can see it going that way, and I can also see it going the other way too. I can see depending – again, now let's step out of the trenches. Let's get away from talking about like all the things that the guys in the defense and the offensive line, the pass blocking, the opening up the holes. Yeah, it really comes down to executing and taking care of the ball at that point. And can it come back? Because there've been too many instances where, you play something a little close, or there was a fumble, or there was an interception thrown, and that's what kind of scares you, and that's what. Listening to talking heads like us, kind of make it a fallacy to say, well, did you guess it right? But I think playing in Robbinsville, ideal conditions, it's probably going to be a Robbinsville football game. A little bit closer though. I would envision this and almost be like 28-24. But if you've got to play with a little bit of wetness, it's going to be a ground game, and that one could be a little bit different. But I'll stay with 28-24 Robbinsville at this point.
Well, that's all the games we have to talk about. Short show this week because there's not much to talk about when you have no idea what's going on. Don't know if we're going to be playing on Monday or Saturday or Sunday, or we've got games moved to Thursday. I don't know that that's going to be any better than Friday. But stay tuned to our Team F Line Sports Facebook page. We'll keep you updated when all the games get moved around there. Brandon, anything you want to say before we go?
No, just if you are out and about, we'll just keep you up to date with what's going on. But I'm looking for some good football, whether it happens on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or this coming Monday.
All right, sounds good. This has been Inside the Smoky Mountain Conference presented by Team F Line Sports.